time for us to check back in with the Panther on Cold Mountain and other stories by Charles Fletcher and see what happens next. If you've missed any of the previous readings, just look in the description below for a playlist. Mountain medicine. The early settlers in the mountains of western North Carolina did not go to the doctor as we do today for the treatment of sickness. They had their own methods of curing any kind of sickness or injury that they had. In every settlement in the mountains, there was one special person who was considered to have the power to cure every sickness known to these mountain people. This person was usually an older woman, and some people had the idea that this person was a witch who could cast a spell on you and even cause you to die. Just the same, they always sent for her when there was sickness in the family. The diet of the mountain people was mostly food with a lot of fat. They ate lots of fatback and sow belly, along with any salad greens that were available. In the spring, poke salad was a favorite, along with other leafy greens that grew wild in the fields and along the edges of the woods. The way that they ate was the reason for their number one sickness, stomach problems. One of their treatments was to wear the root of rhubarb on a string around the neck. This would prevent stomach cramps. Drinking a tea of hot water poured over the dried lining of the gizzard from a chicken with a little honey added would also cure the stomach ache. Wild cherry bark made into a tea was used for a cough. Also, sassafras, catnip, horehound, and pennyroyal were boiled and made into a tea for a cough and to treat colds. The leaves from the red cedar were boiled and inhaled for the treatment of bronchitis. Willow tree leaves and bark were made into a tea to break up a fever. Bloodroot, golden seal, wild ginger, and jack in the pulpit were used for the treatment of many diseases. Resin from the white pine was used for wounds and sores. Powdered bark from the hemlock tree was dried and made into a powder to stop bleeding from a cut. The bark of the hemlock was also good for burns. Cooked pine needles were used for toothache. Rhododendron oil was used for rheumatism. Snake root and dried Indian turnip were made into a tea, sweetened with honey, and used for a variety of aches and pains. These remedies seemed to work, but who would want to get sick and take these medicines? They all tasted awful. Bloodletting was also a common practice and used for someone with too much blood, high blood pressure. Poultices were used for different ailments. Mustard plasters were used to break up congestion. They would be left on only until the skin began to turn pink. If left on too long, they would blister the skin. Poultices were also made from yellow root and jimson weed, which were plentiful in the summer months. When someone had the chicken pox, they would be given a nasty tasting tea made from yellow root and Indian turnip. They would drink this awful tasting tea, and within 15 minutes they would break out and their fever would come down. If someone had the shingles, you could take the blood of a black chicken, rub it on the area, and they would be cured right away. For warts, they notched a willow stick and buried it under the patient's doorstep, or they would rub the wart with a grain of corn and lay it in the forks of the road. Then there was the treatment of the throat disease called thrush. With thrush, the mouth and throat would be covered with blisters. The only known cure for this was to find someone who had never seen his or her father. This person would blow their breath in the mouth of the one that had the thrush, and he would begin to get better immediately. If someone had measles and they wouldn't break out, someone would be sent to Mr. Robinson's farm to collect some sheep pills, sheep dung. These pills would be wrapped in a thin cloth and then placed in a bowl. Next, they would pour some boiling water over the bag of pills. After they soaked for a few minutes, they were removed. A spoon of honey was sometimes added to make the drinking a little easier, and the liquid would be given to the patient. Within an hour, the measles would pop out all over the body. Then the patient was on the road to recovery. When someone got a bad skin rash, it was usually referred to as the itch. The sure cure for this was a good coating of a salve made from sulfur powder and lard that was rendered from the fat of the hog that was killed for winter meat. It usually took several days for the sores to scab over and dry. Given time and patience, this always worked. Everyone came into contact with poison ivy during the summer months. It was always present on the trees that were in the cornfields and other garden spots. It caused a rash that would drive you crazy by its itching. If you rubbed or scratched the blisters caused by poison ivy, that would make the itching worse. The best treatment was an application of a heavy layer of buttermilk mixed with salt. This would stop the itching and start the drying of the blisters. Head lice were always transferred to your head from someone who had them. For example, if you were sitting at a desk behind someone at school and they had lice, you were pretty sure to get them. How they moved from someone else's head to your head was a mystery, but it happened. The best and sure treatment was to shave all the hair from your head along with the lice. This was a problem for the girls, so something else had to be done. Sometimes a good combing with a fine-toothed lice comb followed with a good washing with a strong stinking balm soap that was made with Lysol got rid of the lice. The girls had a much harder time getting rid of them. Every time someone began to complain with chest pains, the woman of the house would begin to make plans for a good hot mustard plaster. When this plaster was applied to the chest area, it had to be watched real close so that it didn't make blisters on the skin. It was left on until the skin began to turn pink, then removed. It was supposed to relieve the cramps and pain from the chest area, but it may have been so painful that the patient forgot about the real pain. Every settler kept several hives of honeybees. This was his main source for sweetening his food and medicine. He didn't depend on store-bought sugar. With all the bees around, someone was stung sometime or another. The best and sure treatment for a sting was some snuff or tobacco from the mouth rubbed on the sting spot. The treatment was simple because nearly everyone dipped snuff or chewed tobacco. There were many experts who could get rid of warts on the hands. How these warts were formed, no one really knew. We children were told that they came from our handling a toad frog. We did play with frogs sometimes, but I don't think this was the cause. Some wart doctors used a willow stick. They would make notches on the stick for as many warts as you had on your hands. Next, they would have you bury it under the doorstep of your house. The number of notches on the stick indicated the number of days before the warts would disappear. Another method was to rub the warts with a greasy dishcloth and not wash your hands for as many days as there were warts. You could also rub a grain of corn on a wart, lay it in the fork of two roads, and the person who picked it up would get your wart. Believe it or not, many of these methods of doctoring did work, especially those medicines made from roots and berries. Medicine Show, 1930s. Believe it or not, there was a lot of entertainment in the mountains and on the farms of western North Carolina, and a lot of it was free, which was just fine for most all the local people of Canton and Haywood County. The medicine show that came to Canton at least once a year was always a big draw. The medicine show was usually a group of 4 to 5 people. Of course, the main performer was called the doctor or the medicine man. Some even called him the con man. Regardless of what we called him, he was a pro. He usually owned the whole outfit and the others were his employees. I remember one medicine show better than the rest. They came to town and posted notices around town and on trees in the country announcing when and where the show would take place. Everyone had daily chores that had to be done. There was the milking and feeding the hogs, horses, and cows. The notices gave those who were interested time to plan their schedules so they could attend. When the big day arrived, people hustled around and finished their evening chores, ate a quick supper, and hit the road to go see the medicine show. The dirty dishes from supper could be washed later. The stage was already set up, all ready for the show to start. It was on the back of the medicine man's truck. The truck was used as a dressing room and to haul all the supplies and entertainers from town to town. Out the medicine man came from the back of his truck through the curtains hanging at the back of the stage. The doc was the star of the show, all dressed up in his black suit with his black bow tie. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Gather up close for some of the best entertainment you will ever see. Tonight we have the best one-man band in the entire country. He plays 3 musical instruments at a time. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome the one and only Red Davis. Out Red Davis came with his guitar, drums, and harmonica. What tune do you want him to play? The doc asked. Requests came from every direction. Wait a minute, Doc said. Red can play any tune you want, but he can't play them all at the same time. Tell you what, how about Orange Blossom Special? Old Red was already playing, and some were clapping their hands and humming along. Doc was just getting the crowd in the mood for the real show. Old Red played several songs on his instruments and sang one. He played his songs regardless of what the crowd asked for. When Old Red was finished warming up the crowd, he left his drums on the stage and went back into the truck. The curtains were hardly closed before a pretty young lady jumped out, dressed in brightly colored clothes, with a blouse that left her belly bare and a short skirt nearly up to her knees. All the men folks stretched their necks and tried to get up closer. Many got a good elbow in the ribs from their wives. What I have to offer you tonight is one of the modern miracles of medicine. You children, move back so Mom and Dad can get up close. Yes, sir, this is the best medicine on the market today. When you buy from me, you have 100% guarantee that it will do everything I say it will do. How many of you folks have aching backs, arms, legs, and other pains? How about that tired feeling after a hard day's work or a nagging headache? Folks, I have the answer to all your problems right here. He turned to the young lady and said, Mother, would you hand me a couple of bottles of Chief Running Deer's Secret? This medicine is made from roots, bark, and other secret ingredients straight from the woods of the Cherokee Indian Reservation. I'm the only white man allowed to sell it. You children move back. Let the grown folks come up close. My price for this miracle medicine is only 50 cents a bottle, but if you want to have a good supply for the winter, I will let you have 3 for $1. Friends, I will probably lose money, but I want to take a vacation and need to sell it all. You, my lucky friends, get a bargain. Red, Mother, and I are leaving in a few days. Better hurry. What I have will go fast, and there ain't no more outside the Cherokee Nation. Out came $1 from my mom's apron pocket. She handed it to Doc. Mother, hand this fine lady 3 bottles of that miracle medicine. Who's next? There were hands everywhere with $1 in them. Doc and his young assistant were really busy. The ones who bought the tonic headed toward home. Soon everyone was gone, and Doc and his crew started to pack everything into the truck. After a very good night, they were ready to move on. When we arrived home, Mom had to wash the dishes that we left on the table hurrying to the medicine show. Mom hadn't been in the kitchen very long until she started singing. She usually hummed or sang when she was working, but this time she was really letting it come out. When the saints go marching in, when the saints go. Mom, what's wrong with you? Oh, I was pretty tired and I had an aching back, so I took a good dose of this medicine. Will there be any stars? Mom was letting the music out loud and clear. Dad went to the kitchen and asked Mom if he could see the medicine. He looked on the back of the bottle where the ingredients were listed. 50% alcohol, 50% spring water, artificial coloring and flavoring, patent applied for. Now, Dad was known to like a good drink of homemade whiskey ever so often. Wonder if Doc has any left. I need a few bottles of that medicine. Can't ever tell when I'll get sick. Better hurry before he gets to the next county. And off he went. Mom's singing was becoming louder. This little light of mine. Mom was feeling her best. That medicine really did work. Next year, there would be another medicine show coming to Canton, but usually had a different medicine man. We didn't care who came. The entertainment was always good, and it was always free. Also, the medicine seemed to help the sick people. Hope he doesn't stay away too long, Mom said. That is one of my favorite Charles stories, just because of the thinking about his mama. You know, we've already heard about her, and one of the last ones we read was where she was mad about her husband, Charles's daddy, trading the cow, and she's worried about the little sick kids the little kids that their family didn't have a milk cow. And just to imagine her in there getting a little tipsy and singing is quite funny, because of course she didn't know why she was feeling so good. You know, she didn't understand that it was part alcohol. That's a really funny one. Now, the first one that we read about the medicine, of course, you may be like my family, and you do use kind of natural remedies. You do use that. Charles was describing a lot of them that I've never heard of, but he described some that I know about and that I've heard of. Y'all have watched me drink the terrible pine needle tea that Matt makes, and we do put honey in it, and Matt thinks it tastes great. I just don't like any kind of hot tea is my problem. Any kind of tea like that, I just think it has a terrible taste. Anyway, but Charles is talking about all those, and he says actually some of them did work. Well, some of them sound kind of silly, of course, like the rhubarb thing around the neck and the chicken gizzard and all that. That's like the one maybe you've heard before, was when a woman was given labor, they would put a knife or an axe or something under her bed to cut the pain. Of course, how can that help? How can that help? But I think if my mother or my grandmother, my dear aunt, whoever, told me that when I was in labor, it would kind of give my mind something to hold on to, and that's why it would help me. Like, I can get through this because they're trying to help me, kind of mind over matter. So some of the things maybe were like that. The warts he talked about, and the thrush, which is really thrush, but thrush is what we would say. Babies most often get thrush or thrush. I've grew up with people, and like Charles says, it has to be somebody that has never seen their father. There's all kinds of different beliefs. Some people believe it has to be the seventh son of the seventh son, and there's all kinds. It can only be passed down from the mother to the son or to the father to the daughter. I mean, there's all different variations of it. But I have known people that did that. Two women. Both knew their father, so that wasn't it. And I don't know how that was passed down to them or what, but that they did it and had success. I have a video about, he mentioned the warts too. I have one about warts. I think I have the one about the thrush, and then, or thrash as we would say, or they would say. And also about taking the burn out of the fire out of a burn, basically. Like if you got burned, that heat, taking the burn out. And all these people that I know that would believe in that, they believe it's because God let them do it. They don't believe it's like they're powerful in their self, or like he was saying about the, maybe the witchcraft or something. They believe it's because God blessed them with the gift to help people. That's what they believe. So all different variations of it. The wart ones, I've not heard exactly the one about the willow stick that he told. I've heard other ones, though, about people that touched them and rubbed them and paid you for them and different things like that. If you watch that video, you can hear some of that. So really interesting. He mentioned yellow root. Yellow root does taste terrible. It grows along our creek here, really prolific. And when Matt and I was getting married, like the day or two before, I used to suffer from like mouth sores in my mouth. I haven't got them in years, but when I was young, I did. And I had terrible ones. Probably looking back, maybe nerves had something to do with it. But it was so bad. I was like, I can't even say I do, because when you have them like that, it's hard to even talk, and you find yourself trying to talk without moving your mouth. And Pap went to the creek and got yellow root, and it tastes terrible. But I do think it helped. I think it helped him, but it was terrible. And then he mentioned, Charles says poison ivy. I know there's difference, but like to us, all of it's poison oak. We just say poison oak. And I've never been one to get poison oak. Paul and Steve both did, and Mama, Granny does. She'd say the wind can blow, and she would get poison oak. But I never really got it. But Granny had it with me when she was pregnant. And Pap said that's why. That's why, Tipper, that's why you don't get it. You had some kind of immunity because your mama had it. But I did get it one time, and I was working for a lady in Hayesville, and I was helping her clean out her yard, and it was in the spring of the year, and it was really overgrown, and I was just carrying stuff by the handfuls and throwing it off, place where she's telling me. And I was having it. I didn't realize it, of course, but I was just getting a bunch of weeds, and it was in it. And I guess because it was, maybe because I was holding it like that, and it was really stout, just come up. Maybe the sap had just rose up in it or whatever. And I had it terrible on my arms. I had scars for a long time. It's better. I tried every remedy you can think of that people tell you to try. I tried it, and of course I went to Daddy first and said, "Do you think this is poison oak?" And he said, "It looks like it, but Tipper, you really don't get poison." I was like, "I know. I've never had it before. I don't know if this is it." But my brother Steve, who's like an expert, he come a day or two later. He heard about it. He come up here and was like, "It's poison oak." Anyway, but I just kept trying all these different things. I put oatmeal on it. I can't remember all the stuff I tried. Finally, one evening, I was like, Matt, I'm in misery. I'm going to the urgent care, and I've got to have some kind of relief. And I drove myself down there, and the doctor said, "Honey, you waited about a week too long to come. You should have come. You need a shot, and some medicine, and you need some pain pills." They even want me to have pain pills. Anyway, but I'm so thankful. I'm saying all that to think. I'm thankful for the knowledge that Charles talked about, and the knowledge that we have, that we know about things like Matt's pine needle tea. But I'm also thankful for modern medicine, like for me to be able to go down there and get the shot, and then in 2 days my arms were getting better. It was a true blessing. So maybe a little bit of both is kind of how I look at it, But I'm very thankful for today's medicine for sure. But I am glad for all that knowledge handed down too, which lots of times is really great, really great. You just have to be, I guess you have to be thoughtful about today's medicine and that medicine both. And then the medicine man. You can imagine in those days when Charles was growing up how there just wasn't that much entertainment, but things like that, like you hear the medicine man's coming, even if you didn't buy anything, you get to hear some music, see a pretty girl, see the medicine man all dressed up, see his little wagon-like thing, Tim Ryan, he's passed away now, but a local Brasstown man, he was like that. He had a little thing like that built, and he would go to festivals and he was the festivals and things like that, and he was the medicine man, and he would talk, and of course he wasn't selling no kind of elixir or nothing. But he would talk and tell stories, and several times he got Corey and Katie to go with him, and they were, I guess, the pretty girls. They didn't wear nothing different, though, than their regular clothes, and they made music. They were his music. I guess they were like Red there. They were the ones making the music. So that's really, when you think about it, really sweet, though. Of course, today, entertainment, we have just, as far as in America, just untold. Here on YouTube, you can find whatever you want to watch. You can find somebody doing it. If you're interested in music and crocheting, and somebody like me reading old stories, whatever you want, you can find it. But that's really heartwarming to hear about the excitement that it brought when Charles was a boy, and the humor of his mother drinking some of it when she got home, and boy, she was tired and had to face those dirty dishes. And of course, she wasn't like me. She couldn't just turn on the water. She had to get water and heat the water and then wash them. So she knew it was a long chore for her to be able to clean up the kitchen. She just needed a little help, right? So I hope you enjoyed this part of Charles talking, and I hope you'll leave a comment and tell me what you liked or your thoughts about it. And of course, I hope you'll drop back by next Friday and we'll see what Charles tells us about next.